If you're looking for a great last-minute gift idea, look no further than the double-decker salt cellar.
Hit it!
In our last video, you saw my son using the kitchen helper, but some of you were eyeballing something else. You saw this little device on the counter that he was scooping salt out of. Well, it's called a salt cellar. And this is the one that we have in the kitchen. It's made from bamboo. It's got two tiers to it, so we have coarse salt in one and regular table salt in the other. And you could put other spices in there if you wanted to. The lid closes up, and it's really convenient. This way you can kind of scoop things out, or if you just need a little pinch, you got a nice open container to take a pinch of salt. Right? Pretty cool stuff. So you ask the question, who made it? Well, I didn't make it. I don't even know where we got it from. We've had it for years now, but I thought it was a simple enough design that we could pretty much copy it, take it to the shop and make our own. So that's exactly what we did. And I didn't make just one, I made about 4 of them. It's one of those things you want to batch out, so let me show you what we got here. Now, I've got a pretty nice selection here, some Bubinga, cherry, maple, and another one from cherry. And it's a pretty faithful copy of the original design. Nice and straightforward and super easy to make. They take about 2 to 3 hours each to get them done. Let me show you what you're going to need to do it. Now, the cool thing is, the same hardware I used on the last project, I'll be able to use on this. I need a threaded insert and a bolt. And the bolt just has to be long enough to go through the pieces and actually meet that threaded insert. I'm also going to use this circle template here. I use this a lot on small projects like this, especially when I need to dish out something. So it's got a bunch of different circles. I got this from Rockler. Not too expensive and definitely worth the investment. Now, to use that template, you're going to need a router and a pattern bit, and I've got one here. This one would work. Problem is, it's got a nice sharp corner on it. So if you can, get one that has this rounded bullnose profile on the end, and you'll get a much nicer bottom to your scoop out areas. That's really about it, so let's get into the project and talk about the wood. I'm starting with 2 pieces milled to 1 5/8 inches thick and a lid piece milled to 1/2 inch thick. The length and width need to accommodate your desired shape. For this teardrop shape, you're looking at about 5 by 5. I used the old salt cellar as a template for reference. Now we need to glue these pieces together temporarily, and we can do that using the paper trick. Instead of just gluing the blocks together, we'll glue them with a layer of thick paper between each joint. This way the glue bonds to each side of the paper, making it possible for us to work with the block as one piece. But later on, we'll still be able to pry the pieces apart to complete the project. The first time I saw this process was on an old episode of the New Yankee Workshop. Thank you, Norm. Once the glue is dry, we can cut the shape at the bandsaw. The top of the old salt cellar will give us the narrower dimension that we need for the lid. Of course, you need to make sure that the 1/2 inch lid piece is on the top. With the bandsaw tilted to about 5 degrees, begin cutting out the shape. The bandsaw can leave a rough cut, so use a sander to clean up the marks and refine the shape. Since I'm making 4 of these, I'm pretty thankful for my stationary belt sander, which makes quick work of the sanding. Now we need to drill a hole for the bolt and a starter hole for the insert. We'll do it all in one shot using a 1/4 inch bit. The bit only goes about 3/4 of an inch into the bottom piece. Now for the scary part. I insert a thin putty knife into the joint and give a few taps to help loosen the lid. If you use too much glue or too thin of a sheet of paper, this could be trickier than it needs to be. But be patient. If one spot isn't splitting, then move to a different part of the joint and try again. To clean off the paper, I recommend using scrapers. A number 80 cabinet scraper helps me avoid creating dips and valleys. Follow up with a card scraper, and then finish it off with a light sanding using a sanding block. Avoid using a power sander for this work as it'll knock the pieces out of flat. Now we can drill and route the recesses. I just eyeball the location using the circle template and draw it in place. The higher dish needs a 2 3/4 inch diameter hole, and the larger bottom one gets a 3 inch hole. At the drill press, I hog out the bulk of the material using a Forstner bit. Now using double stick tape, I attach the template to the workpiece using the second workpiece as a balance for the overhang. The router bit is set so that the bearing just peeks out of the base, ensuring a good contact with our template. You have to be careful when routing, as the bit makes contact with the big chunks of wood missed by the Forstner bit. But take your time and keep going clockwise inside the template. Once the material is removed, we can lower the bit so that the bearing rides on the freshly cut wood. You basically go as many rounds as it takes, leaving at least a 1/4 inch thick bottom. The bit might leave a scalloped surface, but we can always sand that later on. The bottom dish now needs a wider hole for the threaded insert. The 1/4 inch hole will help guide the 3/8 inch bit home. To insert the insert, I put a little wax on the threads and then thread it into the hole. The trick is to apply steady pressure while cutting into the wood, keeping the insert perfectly vertical the entire time. If it goes off course, stop, make an adjustment, and then keep going until it's flush or just below the surface. With the 3 layers assembled, you might find that the pieces shift slightly, so tighten everything down securely and then give the unit a nice sanding. This last step is really important as it gives the salt cellar its clean look. Now each piece is sanded thoroughly, including the inside dish areas. Keep in mind, these things will be filled with spices or salt, so the bottoms just don't need to be perfect. We'll also break all the edges so that they're smooth to the touch. For a quick drying finish, I'm using Deft Semi-Gloss Lacquer. 3 to 4 coats should do the trick. And now for the final assembly. The tighter you make the bolt, the harder it is to open, so adjust it to your liking. Something to consider is gluing the bolt to the lid piece. On the original, turning the lid is what tightens and loosens the bolt. On mine, the bolt is independent of the lid, and all you need to do is make sure it's finger tight for it to work properly. So I'm honestly not sure yet which is better, but I can always glue the bolt to the lid later if need be. Well, I gotta say, I like the Bubinga version so much that I think that's gonna be our new one, and the rest of them are gonna go to family and friends as holiday gifts. So thank you for mentioning this, because this would have never happened if you guys didn't ask questions about what that was in the kitchen. All right, so if you make one, send me some pictures. I wanna see what you come up with, but you can see how you could really let your creativity go wild with the shape, the size, the compartments. A lot of good possibilities for this one. All right, thanks for watching.